Open to be Agile, podcast number 6. Agile isn't all that bad, or is it? Seeing and experiencing healthy Agile doesn't just happen at the snap of a finger. It's far from simple due to the complex adaptive system and the industrial complex we face each day. To make it more complex, we have to work with people. In many cases, lots of people. People think different, have different personalities, thought processes, emotions, visions, wants, and needs. There's chemistry involved. It could be hard getting 4 people aligned and on the same page. How about 40? How about 400? How about 4,000? Yeah, not so easy. It gets complicated the more people you add to the mix. Agile not that bad? Well, maybe you have experienced or are experiencing this, and if you can relate, you too might start to feel negatively about Agile in this world. Here are just some of the things that you may have experience with. You operate in a culture that just simply does not support change. It sounds so great to go Agile, so the transformation is going to be treated as a project. It's going to be given a budget, a timeline, a deadline, and someone's going to be held accountable to manage this project, and we need to be Agile by that date. The champion you thought you would have in your organization basically only supported it by the means of writing a check, then doesn't want to provide air support and foster encouragement where it's needed to make this healthy. Here's another scenario. You don't have a proven expert leader that can be trusted, confided in, to be the concierge to this journey. Maybe you have too many people lobbying that their Agile is better than your Agile, or they have a solution that's the best. Then the solution ends up getting forced upon people. Here's another situation you've experienced or seen a revert to the old ways because small deployments of working software and trusting teams is too hard to fathom. It's just too difficult. Maybe there are too many meetings because your ceremonies were added to the other meetings and those previous meetings weren't really evaluated or mapped to any particular ceremony, so it seems a bit redundant. Here's another one, and then we'll start moving on with the show. Maybe everyone just feels now they're doing process for process sake, and we could just throw a rubber stamp to it and call this Agile. Anyway, I'm sure some of you out there can relate. This show is just the right show for you. We're so excited to explore this topic where we will conclude the second part of this mini season with a super solid mic drop of epic proportions. In this episode, we dive into starting with why. So let's get started. Welcome to Open to be Agile. We got a great show and we're going to dive right into this. We have Isaac Garcia back, and we also brought on another one of our leaders, Mark Cruth. I'll get to letting them say hi and introducing themselves in just a second. But today's topic, Agile is not all that bad, or is it? I think today, in the state of where we're at, our biggest problem is trying to find out how to make anything healthy in the world of Agile because it's such a culture change. It is so different than what people have done for years that, we're going to have to transcend this time. What kind of brought this whole entire topic up was a real interesting LinkedIn excerpt from Neil Killick. So Neil, if you're out there listening, you kind of inspired this show, and that's kind of what we wanted this goal of this show to be, is a connection with the people that are out there and opinions and things that you bring forward. So let me just read this real quick. Agile describes an approach to software development agreed between 17 practitioners in 2001 as better ways to develop software based on just 4 common values and 12 principles. Agile was never intended to be a thing. It is an adjective like healthy, which can be put in front of the word software development to describe a more responsive, adaptive, value-driven approach. As such, there will always be degrees of agility in any team or organization. But if you're eating 10 Big Macs a day, going to the gym twice a week, or eating an apple a day could be described as healthy things to do, but they do not necessarily make you healthy. The prevailing theories of management in most organizations make a genuine adoption of more agile ways of working difficult. So the Agile we see in the wild is mostly Agile theater. It's Jira, stickies, stand-ups, sprints without any real change for the better in how customers are served, how well employees are supported, how humanely they are treated and treat each other, how adaptive to business is changing internal and external market conditions, etc. Make no mistake, most Agile in our industry is nothing more than lipstick on a pig. And sometimes that lipstick is actually the wrong color or even toxic. That's one spin on it. And before I get to introducing our co-host today, I was on a podcast not long ago where we basically talked about an article. It was why developers consider Agile development to be nonsense. And it talked about the reality of there really are projects that should last 8 or 9 months in software, and that's just what you have to do. And even Google does it. And there's this real downplay about how management and developers and certain points of view are just like Agile's this terrible thing. It's not doing what it was set out to do. And then here's another point of view to look at it before we move on. Agile just has a bad rap in some cases. Cultist, it doesn't work. It's a buzz term. There's a mix up with the term agility and Agile and rigid and imposed methodologies. And I would even say some have knocked it to be a business. This is just a way people can make money and promote this business and promote this whole machine of getting certifications and coaches hired and what are the value of these people. So there's this real whole negative aura going on. And I will throw in the fact that there is a whole nother side of this where Agile is healthy and Agile does work and people have received a lot from Agile. But much like Simon Sinek, we're going to start with the whys. Start with why, right? So first, before we get into the why, I will let Mark Cruth, one of our Coaching Agile Journeys leaders, introduce himself, tell you a little bit about himself, and give a real brief touch on what he thinks about the topic of today's show. So Mark, if you don't mind.
Yeah, you bet, Jeff. Thanks so much, man. I'm excited to be on here and to kind of especially this dialogue, because I think it's a big one in our space to be dealing with right now. So a little bit about me. So I have been in the Agile space for probably about the last decade now, and I run my own company called Teal Mavericks, partner with a few outstanding gentlemen doing that. And our goal is really around kind of reimagining how we work, not necessarily through Agile, but through multiple means, because the world we deal with is complex. And part of the topic that we'll think about is that Agile is an approach. It's not necessarily a solution. So we deal with the world of complexity. I also am a coach with a company called Quicken Loans. They're one of the largest mortgage lenders in the U.S., based out of Detroit. And I have a great time there. So I've been with the Coaching Agile Journeys group here for probably about a year and a half now. Really loved it. We do a lot of great stuff. So that's a little bit about me. So in terms of like my perspective on our topic, when I saw that it was going to be coming up, I was really interested in it. So I got to be on this one. Because we're in Finland last week, and I actually spoke on something kind of similar. I had a talk called Anarchy over Agility, and it was very much focused on this fact that agility has become kind of a problem. And it really stems from the fact, what you alluded to, Jeff, we've become so focused on things like certifications, putting people through into just, saying, hey, I'm a coach now, I can help you, having actual, the whole Agile industrial complex as you think about it. And so for me, it's a really interesting question to kind of dive into, because I really do think when you look at companies like you mentioned, like the Googles and the Amazons, when you look in there, they're not necessarily saying, oh, I'm an Agile company. What they've done is they've tried to take on complexity. They haven't taken on agility, they've taken on complexity. And they said, hey, how can we work smarter, better, faster together? We don't need a certification or a coach necessarily to come in to tell us to do it, because our situation is unique. So yeah, that's kind of my take right now on this. And yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm excited to see where this goes today.
Isaac, if you want to say hi to audience again and give us your opinion on what you're thinking about today's show.
Sure, Jeff. Hi, everybody. It's great to be with you all again. And I love being able to come on and just talk with two great guys here, just talking with Jeff and Mark about just kind of some things that matter to us. You know what I mean? Because ultimately we all experience some level of perception when we try to come in and help in organizations, right? There's some kind of lens of what is your help going to look like, right? We've seen consultants, we've seen other coaches, we've seen the latest fads come and go, we've seen the books, we've seen the podcast, we've seen the YouTube videos, we've seen the programs. And so I think this is a great topic because I have seen even recently so many times this writing off of the entire concept, right? Like I hear what you're saying, but because you're calling it that word and someone's already said that word to me, and agility or agile or even some of the frameworks, right? Scrum, Kanban, whatever you want to call it. Someone said that to me, and then I had an experience with it, where it didn't deliver results as fast as I wanted, or it just caused chaos, or it allowed the teams to get out of control. And you've got this perception of, don't tell me that's helpful or it works. I think if you rewind the clock back to the very beginning of really the, Agile movement, and when Scrum came out, do twice the work in half the time, there's this idea of this is going to change everything. And people are like, great, plug it in. Let's make it happen. Let's get those results. And not seeing those results. I mean, there are some companies that it's changed everything, right? And those are the ones we hold up as like, look at this, it works, and it works really well. And I think a whole lot of people have said, great, let's plug it in and make it work. And they've seen maybe the opposite, or they've seen, lackluster results, like maybe things got incrementally better. And so there's this mindset of, don't preach that to me. It just doesn't work. I mean, if you just Google, why Agile doesn't work, there's a lot of articles out there where people are, frustrated and complaining. And I think as we dig into this a little more, this is a topic that most people who really capture, I think, the mindset of agility and who are on this journey, we talk about our, coaching Agile journeys. We're on a journey. We're trying to develop. We're trying to learn. I think we all have come across people who are tired of one more, business trend. And when they say, oh, this is the latest business trend, there's just a lot of kind of shutdown and pushback. And so as we discuss it, I think this is an important topic, both for people who maybe are shut down and say Agile never work, Agile's the latest trend or whatever. Like if they hear this, I hope that through our discussion, they'd say, maybe I need to look at it a little bit differently. But if you're an Agilist at heart and you're trying to convince others and they're pushing back and shutting you down and saying, don't preach that to me, that doesn't work here, then I think that hopefully this conversation will help you, one, realize what it is you're standing for. Don't get lost in the my framework versus your framework. And two, really be able to maybe explain that in a way that changes the conversation from, I think, some of the places we get snagged up. So I'm looking forward to digging into it with you guys. Nobody else I'd rather look into this with. So I think it'll be a great conversation. And as always, I hope it's beneficial for our audience.
Great. Let's start the exploration now. So let's start with why. I would first ask the question, why has it gained this negative connotation? Why is mostly the Agile we see in the wild Agile theater? Why is it lipstick on a pig? Why does it have this negative thing where people hear this buzz term and they're like, oh, here, it's almost like you can't even say the word Agile in certain areas because they're like, here we go with that word. It's almost a joke even. And I'll put this out there before we start to answer. There's going to be many, many reasons. I'm just working here with Mark and Isaac to explore some of the whys, and maybe you could relate to it. Maybe you have some more out there as you're listening, and that's great. We want to hear about it. Feel free to tweet us or contact us any way you can, because we'd love to hear your opinions as well. So I'll start with you, Mark, since this is your inaugural show with us. So give us, why do you think that it is the way that it is right now with the negative side of Agile?
I think for me, the big thing has to do with the kind of the one size fits all mentality. A lot of, we come in there and, I started out myself. I got my CSM and back in 2009, and I was like, yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to do it this way. It's going great. The Scrum Guide tells us everything we need to know. That's all we need to know. And so as I even went through trying to implement things when I was just starting out as a as a young Scrum Master, I really found that all of a sudden my context was just a little bit different. And I know everyone always says, well, everyone says they're a snowflake, everyone says they're different. But I actually think there's something to be said about that. As I think that based on the market you compete in, based on the products you have, based on just the type of business you do, there's slightly different contexts in each situation actually, if you think about it, the people who are involved too. And based off that, you come in and we didn't lay down something like Scrum, or we lay down something like Safe, and we say, here, do it this way. And people, they might try it, but then if they're not really understanding, to your point, the why, they don't understand the reason why we do a stand-up. They don't understand the reason why we do iterations, and they're just doing the motions. All of a sudden, we're in this spot where they're just saying, oh, we're going to another meeting again, or, oh, we're just doing this again. They can't transcend past just the mechanical perspective. They can't see the forest for the trees in front of them. So I think a lot of it has to do with that lack of context, that lack of understanding of, to your point, the why.
And Isaac, any thoughts as to why from your perspective, or any thoughts as to what Mark just brought forward?
Yeah, I think so. I think, and that's exactly what he was saying with that kind of one size fits all. That's exactly what, from my experience and kind of my perception, I see happening is this sense of, I understand what it is and what it's going to take because I've read a book, because I've listened to a podcast, because I got my CSM, right? Whatever your certification or your title. And what happens is we then take that prescription, right? Here's what it is. Do these things, do these, Scrum Guide's a great example, I think, is just to take the Scrum Guide and say, this is it. Just do this and you'll have the results. And it's kind of like in any situation, I think we as humans tend to want the maximum return for the minimum input, unfortunately. And what we need to find out and wrap our minds around is that real organizational change is hard. It's not something that you can just take and suddenly change. It's the same idea as losing 30 pounds, right? We might say, oh, look, losing 30 pounds, just eat less and work out more. Psh, that's easy. But you got to realize, yeah, right? But you got to realize there is a level of commitment that you need to make to, if you're expecting a big change like that, honestly, a transformation, you've got to make some level of commitment to, I'm going to stay with this. I'm going to learn what I need to learn. I'm going to adapt what I need to adapt, and I'm going to make this work. I am going to set a goal, and I'm going to go out there and get it, no matter really what it kind of costs me. And I think what happens is a lot of companies go, I'm willing to spend this much, right? I'm going to get my ROI, and they start making the investment. And of course, they're looking for their return. But then as soon as, maybe there's some bad news, or it doesn't come out quite as quickly as they thought, or worse, I think a lot of times you see implementations. I think we've all seen implementations where there's kind of we're just going to follow the framework, and there's not really the mindset shift. And so I'm using air quotes, you're doing Scrum or you're doing Agile, but you're not really. You're just kind of forcing people to go to a stand-up every morning, but you're not really looking for the point, the why of what that stand-up is, and you're not getting those results. And so you sign out, right? You say, okay, enough. I'm done with the weight loss program. I'm done with I'm out. And the problem is you then brand it, Agile didn't work, Scrum didn't work. You know what I mean? And that's where I think if you get back to the why, so what are you trying to accomplish, number one? And show me an organizational transformation that happens quickly, that happens easily. And my goodness, you've got a silver bullet that you could sell for $1 billion, right? Like, it doesn't. It takes time. It takes working with individuals. I think often we forget that. And those are changes that you can't just snap your fingers, just like you can't snap your fingers and lose 30 pounds. It takes you a while to get into that bad situation of being overweight. It's going to take you a while to get out of it. And if you're not willing to make that commitment, I think, then you're going to try the one size fits all. You're going to try this is the answer, the silver bullet, the thing that works. It'll fix it overnight. It's the fad diet. And then when you don't drop 30 pounds in 2 days, you go, oh, this doesn't work for me. And you back off of it. So I would say on the why side, you got to really understand, what is it you want to accomplish? Like, identify your goal. Just saying we want to get faster, better, cheaper isn't really a goal, right? Faster, better, cheaper. What does that mean? What are you willing to commit to get to that goal? And how do you know when you've gotten there? How are you going to measure success? What are your milestones you're looking for? And then I think once you've defined that why, you can actually assess and say, what's a good fit for that? What's the right tool? What's the right diet? But if you don't start with that why, I think you can get lost pretty quickly. And it's when you're lost that you abandon all hope. And when you abandon all hope, it's when you quit. And when you quit, I think that's what kind of gives the movement, the frameworks, that bad name of tried it, been there, done that, got the t-shirt, did not work for me.
Amazing perspectives right there. I actually spoke on this at a couple different engagements. And one of the things that I bring up when Agile fails, and this has been around for a decade now, is Gene Tabaka's 12 failure modes. One of the top ones is a checkbook commitment doesn't support organizational change management. That is like spot on. It's we want to go Agile. Let me sign on a dotted line. I was sold this. We're going to go Agile tomorrow. We're going to follow this rigid and everyone's going to do it. Or they bring in a consultant, they invest a lot of money, and it's not for the right reasons. I would say, what problem are we solving? Why do we want to do this? What's our North Star for doing this? What's it going to get us? And checkbook commitment doesn't support organizational change management. It should be culture change management, because it's not that thing. It is a way of thinking and a way in a mindset of operating. So the biggest thing for me, and I'll throw this out there too, and I see this happen as we go through this paradigm shift in the world, in the culture that we're in business. It could be almost any business, not just a tech or a software business. The millennials that are coming out of school right now, the colleges, the big universities, the Gen Zs that are on the heels, they're overachieving. They're more specialized today than what they've ever been through history. And they are not coming from a culture, and parents, me being one of them, that has this discipline of 2 decades ago, has a management style of 2 decades ago. To just think like 2 or 3 decades ago, it was very through force. Schools could have a paddle on a wall. Disciplining children and educating children is a different art today. So the millennials coming out and the Gen Zs are really sharp, really overachieving. They're specialized, and they don't want to go into a workforce that's rigid, command and control. They want to use their brain. They want to prove what they're capable of. So HRs are now, we need to say we're Agile, because that's where the best of the best want to work. Like companies like Facebook and Google and Spotify, they're looking for cultures like that. And how can we compete against them if we don't proclaim and make a self-proclamation, we are Agile? I think they use that too, and it's a good recruiting tool. But here's that Agile theater. What did they just get? And going back to the original article that I'd mentioned that kind of kicked us off here, eating 10 Big Macs a day and going to the gym twice a week, or eating an apple a day, can be described as healthy things to do, but don't make you healthy. And that's true. Like, oh, cool. I could do all these things, but if I just go to the gym 3 times a week and I eat healthy every once in a while, I'm healthy. That's that 10 to 15% that companies are okay with. We want to do Agile, and this is what I put in my Agile failure presentation, is that then it becomes a la carte or a buffet, where the executive that wants to lead the charge goes, you know what, I like these things about Agile, but not these things. Like change, really good for us. Delivering fast, I want to see speed to delivery, but we're not going to negotiate with scope. I want it all. So there's no dichotomy. It's, I want this buffet. I'm going to tell you how to run this buffet. And then it kind of just morphs and evolves into Agile theater. So those are a few whys from my perspective, but let's get into the what. Like if we were kings and queens and rulers for a day in the Agile kingdom, and we could change the perspective that's out there, and we could improve this atmosphere and start changing these perspectives. What are some things you would do, Isaac, to thwart some of this? Or what's some advice that you would give to some of these people that have had a bad Agile experience, that they could see some sort of health with Agile, or they could buy back into it? Well, that concludes today's show. Today, we covered Start With Why. Next week, we'll move into a very deep dive of what we could do as leaders to improve Agile's image and change the negative perception. Also next week, as we conclude the episode, you'll get to hear the ultimate mic drop that we keep hinting on. So please come back next week and listen when we cover what we can do to improve Agile's image. Please reach out to us. All of our contact information can be found on our website at coachingagiljourneys.com. Agile on, my friends, and do something positive between this week and next. Thank you for joining us. To learn more or to contact us, visit www.coachingagiljourneys.com.